When we think of our ancestors, many of us imagine the modern human, tall, upright, and fairly normal in the context of the animal kingdom. But in the grand scheme of evolutionary history, we, Homo sapiens, are the exception, not the rule. Before our rise to dominance, there were creatures on Earth that were far stranger, more terrifying, and more extreme than anything we could imagine. Among the most extraordinary, and dare we say freakish creatures in human evolution, were the Neanderthals. These weren't your typical cavemen. These were muscular, heavy-browed, stone-tool-wielding freaks of nature that roamed across Europe and parts of Asia tens of thousands of years ago. Their appearance, habits, and capabilities were so bizarre that for centuries they were considered little more than brutish, ape-like beings. But recent discoveries have shown that Neanderthals were a lot more sophisticated and a lot weirder than we ever thought. Let's dive into the strange, freakish world of Neanderthals and why they were more alien-like than human. The shocking anatomy of Neanderthals, built like tanks, not humans. First off, let's talk about how Neanderthals looked. When we imagine a caveman, many people picture a hunched, stooped figure with rough features and a primitive stance. But the Neanderthal body was a true work of evolutionary overdrive, one that screamed, "freak of nature." They were short and stocky, around 5 feet 5 inches for the average male, but incredibly muscular, with a barrel-shaped chest and limbs that were perfectly adapted to cold, harsh climates. Their skulls were massive, with huge brow ridges, almost like built-in helmets for protection. Their heavy-set faces and wide noses weren't just for show. They were adaptations for the cold, dry air they breathed. Their noses were likely much larger to warm up the frigid air, and their stocky bodies helped them conserve heat better than any human could have in such a brutal environment. Their muscles were overdeveloped. Neanderthals were short and squat, but they had the kind of muscle mass you'd expect from a bodybuilder or a powerlifter, not a primitive human. In fact, if you were to see one in the wild today, you'd probably think you were staring at some sort of prehistoric superhuman, or perhaps even something unrelated to modern humans altogether. Imagine seeing a beastly figure, cave-clad and wild-eyed, charging toward you with the strength of a bear and the agility of a predator. Now that's a freakish sight. Neanderthal tools. Primitive or genius? When it came to tools, we used to think Neanderthals were basic. After all, they didn't invent the wheel or sculpt masterpieces like some of the modern humans we picture. But make no mistake, their tools were far from primitive. They were devastatingly efficient. Neanderthals are credited with making some of the most advanced tools of their time, like flint spearheads, sharp knives, and scrapers to work with hides and bone. They were masters of survival, crafting deadly weapons with a level of skill that would make a modern-day survivalist jealous. Neanderthals weren't just limited to the basics. They made complex tools that were used for very specific purposes, such as the hafting process, which involved fixing sharp points into wooden shafts for spear-like weapons. The complexity of their toolkits suggests they had a level of cognitive sophistication that rivals our own early ancestors. They also engaged in symbolic behavior, like burial rituals, which is something previously thought to be exclusive to Homo sapiens. They may have even painted their bodies and created jewelry. Imagine that, Stone Age bling, in the form of bone, shell, and teeth, strung together in an ancient form of fashion. So, were Neanderthals primitive? Absolutely not. They were innovators and adapters, creating tools and behaviors that made them true survivors in a brutal world. But even with all their intelligence, something about them still seemed off. Neanderthal hunting, predators, or scavengers? Now, let's talk about Neanderthal hunting. Some of the earliest interpretations of Neanderthals painted them as scavengers, creatures that relied on the leftovers of bigger predators. But in reality, they were ruthless predators in their own right. They didn't just sit around waiting for scraps. They were top-tier hunters, stalking large game like mammoths, bison, and even cave bears. But their hunting style was unsettling, to say the least. Neanderthals hunted in packs, using ambush tactics, and likely taking down prey in coordinated efforts. With their muscular builds, they could overpower and take down animals much larger than themselves. Imagine a group of muscle-bound Neanderthals charging at a mammoth, spears raised high. It's a scene out of a nightmare. Some scientists believe they may have even used fire to drive animals into traps or stampedes, creating terrifying violent scenes where prey had little chance of escape. Bone evidence suggests that they didn't just hunt. They engaged in violent encounters, probably involving intense battles with massive prey. The idea that Neanderthals could take down creatures like mammoths is enough to make any predator seem like a freak of nature. So far from being some sort of slow-moving, dim-witted creature, Neanderthals were incredibly effective hunters, no doubt earning their place as one of nature's fiercest predators. But again, their hunting behavior wasn't just advanced, it was brutal. The mystery of Neanderthal extinction. Was it just bad luck? Neanderthals have long been a source of mystery. Why did they go extinct while humans survived and thrived? There are several theories about their demise. Maybe it was competition with Homo sapiens that drove them to extinction, or perhaps they couldn't adapt to the changing climate. But one thing is clear: Neanderthals were survivors. They lived through catastrophic shifts in climate, fierce predators, and natural disasters. But something went wrong in the end. Some theories suggest that interbreeding with humans led to the eventual blending of species. Homo sapiens absorbed Neanderthal traits, while the Neanderthal identity disappeared. However, studies have shown that most modern humans carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA, meaning that part of their legacy lives on in us today. So, were they wiped out because they weren't fit for survival? Not at all. Neanderthals were highly specialized and incredibly well adapted to their world. But in the end, their genetic legacy was absorbed into a new wave of humanity, blurring the line between what was us and what was them. Conclusion: Neanderthals, nature's freaks, but ours to understand. Neanderthals were the ultimate freaks of nature, muscular, powerful, intelligent, and in many ways alien-like. They had the appearance of monsters, the survival instincts of predators, and the tools of innovators. They were, in short, a form of life so different from us, yet eerily close at the same time. While the world of Neanderthals is no longer as mysterious as it once was, we can still appreciate how extraordinary their existence truly was. From their strange bodies to their intelligent, almost monstrous abilities, Neanderthals weren't just early humans. They were a freakish, formidable force of nature. And who knows? As we continue to study their remains and their legacy, we might just discover even more about the most freakish of our distant relatives.